Clydesdale at 11, and then we run into the back end of the rankings. I'll just read through mine in the order that I've got them for you there, Simon. I've got Moseley, Mortimer, Hinchcliffe, Granville, Friend, and Ballon. Obviously, trying to hit a bit upside on a Moseley, Mortimer, Granville type, and then you've obviously got your solid guys in Hinchcliffe, Friend, and Ballon. What do the back end of your rankings look like, mate?
All right, so I didn't quite rank as many as you. I only ranked 14 players on my updated rankings. That's mostly just because I view the hooker position as you may as well only just draft 10, and then I ranked 4 others just in case. So the back end of my rankings going from 10 was Ballon, Ennis, Peets, Clydesdale, and Moseley. Now, just with Moseley, on my rankings, I've got a little asterisk next to his name. I had that there prior to the Titans debacle that went on. So I had him down as a player whose value would rise significantly if he was named in the top lineup. So obviously, since I've had these rankings out, enough has changed that he will be in the top lineup, it seems. So Moseley, I probably will move up in my rankings at some stage. So I'll tweet that out if and when it does occur. So
That's fair enough, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, so that wraps up my rankings there. So is there anything else you want to discuss with the hooker position as a whole, Chris?
Mate, before we take a look at some draft strategies for these guys, I just wanted to add that I do see room for improvement across the board with hooker scoring in Supercoach, not just because of the proposed increased speed of the ruck for the little nippy guys like Isaac Luke, but also think there's a show for the last touch pass rule, adding a few extra points as the season rolls on. I'm particularly talking about those tries where the prop does most of the work and maybe plows over a defender. Previously, hookers they don't always get given those as try assists, so I see that as being a bit of benefit to this spot.
Yeah, I was just going to bring you up on that. I just kind of thought, when you first said it, it kind of made me think, like, how does the last touch pass rule really affect hookers? Because, they throw the first pass, so very rarely is it going to be the last, because I just assumed every pass the hookers throw that leads to a try would just be a try assist, right?
Yeah, well, I had thought that, but I remember being the Farah owner a couple of years ago. There were several times where an Aaron Woods would just barge over the top, and on the first review of the points they give it to him, and then he'd get stripped of it. I presume because they're saying that the prop did all the work and there was no assists. So just interested to see whether it does actually lead to a few more points for the hookers this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. The debate of Supercoach scoring rages on.
That's it, mate. The less we talk about the effect of the ineffective offload, the better, because I just can't understand. But mate, so just really now, I was thinking to wrap this hooker position analysis up. We just have a look at some strategies on where you think some of these guys could or should be taken.
Sure. So I'll kick it off the start of my rankings with Robbie Farah. I've mentioned before that in my opinion, there's a big four in any draft. You've got Thurston, Parker, Gallen, and Fafita in some order, and then the fifth pick in the draft. If you're the guy that has been allotted the fifth spot in the draft, I feel like you've got a decision to make, whether you break the seal and go Farah and go a hooker, or you head down the half track and go with Sean Johnson. I think that's the two main options you can go for as the number 5 pick in the draft, because in my book I don't really think that Merrin or Jesse Bromwich really should come into the conversation at number 5 over those guys. So for me, I think Farah, you should look at him at number 5, but if you can get him in at 6 or 7 in your draft, I think you're doing all right.
Mate, I think if you can snare Robbie Farah in 6 or 7, you're potentially off to the best start you could hope for in this draft. I'm a lot more concrete on Robbie Farah. Horrible buy schedule aside, being an Origin player that plays for the Tigers, for me, the hot start he gets to the year, hopefully a better unit around him this year with Taylor at the reins. For me, he's a no-brainer at 5.
Okay, so if you had the number 5 pick in the draft, it wouldn't even be a question for you between
Lock,
Farah and Sean Johnson?
lock him in, mate. Hopefully turn the corner and pick up Adam Reynolds if you can straight away. That combination to me is far superior to Sean Johnson and whichever forward you could get there.
I'm a big fan of Sean Johnson this year. Massive. I think he could catapult up into Thurston-esque level this season.
Yeah, you are. You've always been a big fan. I'm not as big. That's probably part of the bias coming in. But again, I'm sure that I do agree with you though that he's the only other option at 5. I don't. I think if you start bringing all the Jesse Bromwich into it and the like, you're overthinking a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so I'll move on to Cameron Smith then. I think Cameron Smith is a bit of he can float around a bit in the late first round, early second round, maybe. For me, Cameron Smith, I'd be happy taking him anywhere after Farah, basically. In the next 5 to 6 picks after Farah, I think you should expect to see Cameron Smith go.
Yep.
If you can manage to nab Cameron Smith anywhere in the second round, I think you've got a potential steal there. Because he is missing 3 to 4 games, but when Cameron Smith's fit, he'd be the clear fit number 5 pick in the draft, I would imagine. So I think Cameron Smith could be really good value towards later in the first round you go.
Yeah, for me, I think I definitely take Bromwich ahead of him based on the 4-week layoff. I think because I know Simon, as we'll touch on the front row rankings later, but Bromwich could be set to soar this season. But I still, other than Bromwich, I'm agreeing with you that I'm happy for him to be taken anywhere there. And I think that whoever gets the turn picks, so pick 10 and 11 overall, I would love to pick him up there and pair him with any one of those other high-end guys.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can get him there, I think you've really done well for yourself. So I think they're the top 2 guys, very easy. James Seguiaro, as we touched on before, it gets a bit harder to rank where James Seguiaro will go, mostly because, as we said, it really depends on the sort of super coach owner you are. If you're the risk-averse guy, or I guess are you willing to take a punt on certain guys? So Seguiaro, yeah, could be anywhere. Early round 2, could fall as far as the late round 3. He could go anywhere. You just don't really know.
I suspect that most drafts, most leagues out there, you'll see Seguiaro go somewhere early second round is my prediction. That is a little bit too rich for my blood. However, if you are going to pair him with maybe a guy that's almost a can't miss, so we're looking at the Jesse Bromwiches, the James Grahams, these types, I think at least you've got a chance of making that work. But to pick him confidently over a GI or a Slater, that could be where you bring yourself undone.
Yeah, that's a bit of a tough one. That's a bit of a contentious decision, that, isn't it? Do you go Billy Slater, or do you go James Seguiaro? It's a bit tough, very tough.
I've certainly sort of indicated where I'd go. Definitely Slater or GI for me over him, because having those guys in your team, they're just going to win games off their own back for you over the course of a year. Seguiaro might do that, but if he's playing 60 minutes, they're going to be few and far between. So
I think I'd go the other way personally. I think I'd rather take Seguiaro there and then look to pick up a fullback in my 3rd or 4th round pick. So I think I'd rather, if they were the 2 positions I was going to go, I'd rather go Seguiaro with a guy like Sam Tompkins, for example, rather than going Billy Slater and Andrew McCulloch. I think I'd rather go the other way.
Yeah, I think just to explain that further, I agree with you. If you're going to burn the pick on McCulloch in about round 4 or 5, and then pair Slater, I don't like that combination as much as, say, a Seguiaro and a Tompkins. But I think me passing on Seguiaro there is not to grab a hooker then for quite later and try and hit some upside later on in the draft.
Yeah, hookers very much. If you don't get one of the top 4, you might as well wait until the middle rounds to address the position, really.
So Isaac Luke then, mate. Similar value to Seguiaro. Where do you think he'll go, and secondly, where would you actually take him?
Okay, so I think Isaac Luke will probably go towards the back end of the second round and the start of round 3 in a lot of drafts. For me personally, though, I'm not a big Isaac Luke fan. I just don't think there's much difference between Isaac Luke and Andrew McCulloch, to be honest, because we all saw in the World Club Challenge that Isaac Luke played 80 minutes, and from the stats he did, I think he would have only scored something like 35 points or somewhere in the mid-30s. So I'm just not a huge Isaac Luke guy in fantasy. I know his buy coverage is awesome, but for me there's a big gap between Seguiaro and Luke, and I don't think many other people will view it as big as I think it is. It's just a bit of a personal preference thing, but yeah, for me, I would not draft Isaac Luke until the start of round 4, I don't think, and you're not ever going to get him there in any draft, so he's a no-go for me.
Mate, we're in complete agreement here. With the last pick in 2 and the start of 3, the turn picks, I'm not a fan of Isaac Luke that high. You and I have talked about return on investment. I just think you almost need to exceed what the best season he could have to actually get value there, and you're asking for too much. So I would prefer, if you don't get one of those top 2, as you said, just hang on and wait for the friend theory, or get a bit of value on a Mitch Rain or something later in the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I know he's averaged 62 a couple of seasons ago, and 62, sure, that's a great average, but I just don't know if he'll get back there. I'm just a bit worried about it, how he's going these days. I just don't know. I just wouldn't feel comfortable.
If McInnes tomorrow was shelved or locked into the New South Wales Cup for the year, I probably would change my tune a little bit, but he's not going away. So I think we're in agreement, mate. Let someone else take him early 3 or late 2 and build your team elsewhere.
Yeah, I think we might be sounding a bit harsh there, but that's just my honest assessment of Isaac Luke. I just the buy coverage is great. I know we've said this before, but yeah, he's not one for us.
Just to tick it on here to Mitch Rain, and I mean we have McCulloch next, but we've already suggested that about that sort of round 4, early round 4 is probably about right for him, somewhere in that sort of range, maybe towards the start of 5.
Yeah, I think towards the latter. I think early round 4 is probably a bit rich for McCulloch. I'd say, round 5, start of round 5, middle to round 5, it's probably starting to get good value for McCulloch.
Yeah, you've got to keep in mind as well that there's a lot of second rollers start to come into really good value there that almost certainly have higher averages in them than what McCulloch does. So you don't want to just build your team for the sake of it and sacrifice winning players elsewhere. And I think, for me, if anyone is taking him at the start of 4, they probably are sacrificing those players.
Oh, yeah, couldn't agree more. You saw in our mock draft, who did you get there? You got Papali and Taumalolo, is that right?
That went pretty well.
Yeah, they did go pretty well. But that just goes to show that with those sort of players at that spot in the draft, it's just taking McCulloch there would be a bit of a mistake, I'd feel.
Definitely a mistake. You really shouldn't. They were 2 no-brainer picks, and for that very reason, I easily passed over any of the other hookers there. So to go on to Mitch Rain then, mate, he survived. I must admit, I made the error of not taking him when I could have a couple of times in that draft. He floated around for a long time. At least he does possess enough upside to match some of the other guys above him.
Yeah, he didn't get drafted, I don't think, did he?
He might. I don't think he even did, which is obviously an error. Looking back on these rankings, especially by myself. So having had a closer look at what I made a mission to have a look at what he actually put together last year, and I think even with the 60 minutes that he'll likely get, is he sharing with Matthews this year, mate? Is that who's on the pine?
I think it's Garvey. I think Garvey's back in contention now.
Oh, Garvey's back up there. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, he's been a bit of a weird one, Garvey. He's been in and out of the side with off-field stuff, and yeah, I think he might be back in the team this season. But just looking at Mitch Rain, 53 average last season. Yeah, that kind of surprises me. I thought he would have. I thought he would have been less than that.
I agree, mate. And as I said, after looking at post-draft, mock draft the other day, I would make the same mistake again. And if I could nab him somewhere down in, round 9 or in that sort of range, that seems really good to me.
Yep. If you're a big Mitch Rain guy, just go around early, get him in round 8, lock him in, easy as.
We'll just the next one there, mate. Jake Friend, we've already covered on that theory. Anywhere from 7 down seems appropriate for that.
Yeah, one of those rare occasions where a guy who you have ranked lower in your rankings, you probably have to draft him higher than the guy you have ranked above.
That's true. That if listeners were wondering why we said round 9 for Rain, I think it is just you got to go that the name value and the potential of Friend does mean you have to take him ahead of Rain. So Matt, keep that one in mind.
Yeah.
Mate, for me, it's worth me covering the next guy in my ranking. For Blake Austin, I think the message is don't go too high if you think he's going to be good. I took him in I think it was about round 9, Simon, I believe, in the mock.
Yeah, somewhere around there. I'd have to have a look on the mock draft results to confirm it. But yeah, somewhere around there sounds about where he went. Yeah.
Just if you're a believer, that was an example of me that was running thin enough at hooker, and also because he's 5'8" eligible, I went for a bit of an upside shoot there, and at least he could vastly outstrip that draft position if it all goes his way. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So Simon, did you want to cover Lisha, Peets, Clydesdale, those sort of guys?
Yeah. So Michael Lisha, I think you're looking in the double-digit rounds. I think for Michael Lisha, maybe round 9, but I think round 10, 11, you're probably looking for Lisha. Same thing goes with Peets and Clydesdale. Really, all of these guys, across your 10-man league or 8 to 10-man league, everyone's going to have these 3 guys ranked completely different, as you've seen with Chris's rankings compared to my rankings even. So, yeah, it's going to be hard to tell which of these guys, are going to go first in any draft. So, I think you basically want to go round 10 to try and lock up the guy you believe in the most of the lot, if you were that way inclined.
Yeah, and then I think at the back of the rankings, any one of the Mosley, Mortimer, Hinchcliffe, Granville, Nathan Friend types, you probably don't need to draft those guys as starters. You can maybe grab them. Hinchcliffe, maybe you've got to draft as a starter because of his inflated value to begin with, but somewhere very low end starter, so round 12 or 13, or even bench.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll pick up just to see if they can put together a good season.
Hinchcliffe, the big thing for me with Hinchcliffe is I'm a big, as I said, the Jake Friend theory. Hinchcliffe is the perfect guy. If you're going to go the Jake Friend route, get Hinchcliffe because he'll be good for 4 weeks. That's half of Jake Friend's absence, and then pick up somebody else, see how they go for another 4 weeks, and then you've got Jake Friend coming in. I think that's a good strategy to go with.
Yeah, nice, mate. Even if I obviously Matt Ballon, I'll probably change his ranking after this, but even if you're getting Matt Ballon towards the 11 plus rounds, I think an argument could be made that he's a very good filler just to lock up the position and not be too far behind. I can see that being a strategy as well.
Yeah, that's the beauty of Matt Ballon. You know what you're going to get from Matt Ballon. I think that's the beauty of drafting him, is you're getting 45 to 55 and nothing more, nothing less.
That's it, mate. So that wraps up our analysis of the hooker position. Thanks for that, Simon.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. It's been a pleasure. We'll try and get a few more of these out shortly.
Yeah, and feel free to comment away, guys, and we'll as with our articles that we'll get underway once round 1 kicks over. We'll get back to you when we can. Cheers, guys.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Bye.